There we are. We're back on our weekly show, the Digital Online Streaming Mastery Show, the show that is dedicated to those that want to be real serious players in the space of audio and visual streaming. This is the show that is dedicated to our Train the Trainer program. And the participants in this show are our alumni, graduates of our digital online streaming mastery show that we started in 2020 during the COVID times, when we realized that audio streaming and video streaming were becoming really the big industries, so to say. And of course, the emergence of podcasting in general and the digital online radio. So Commercial Radio Worldwide is one such radio. We will give you the context why we are where we are today. My name is Sam Zimmer. I am your host, and let me rather say one of the weekly co-hosts that present this show, Digital Online Streaming Mastery Show. I'm joined by those alumni, the graduates, members of Commercial that have invested so much of their time on this journey. And we are so glad that broadly at the Commercial organization, we are uncovering some new exciting territories. And the knowledge that we have acquired through this weekly series is becoming handy indeed. We are today talking about unit number 35, conduct 30, and the topic is mentoring. Unit number 34, conduct 29. And of course, the topic is mentoring, specifically on a topic, meetings and briefings management. A very innocent topic that doesn't really appear to be of great importance. But if you think of it, every one of us, before we do things collectively, we organize a get-together, which we always call meetings. Very, very underrated competency and skill by so many people, and yet a source of so many agony when things don't function. You can relate to very poor management of meetings. This is Commercial Radio Worldwide, the mind, the journey, the destiny. We apply our mind to the journey that takes us to our destiny. Our shows are based on the principle we call the idea. We inform and entertain, develop and educate, empower and support, associate and network. That's the idea. I always say that we are a channel that promotes collective and social learning. That's how I will informally call it. And then I'll hasten to say that we are, as co-hosts and listeners of these programs, this show, almost regarding ourselves as mastermind group of common interests that learn together, grow together, and empower others together. I can see my brother and co-host, our resident co-host DJ Divesh is here. You can see Rapula is on the public platform. Rapula, I try to move you over. I'm sure you will ultimately join us in the virtual studio. But let me greet my brother here, Divesh. Divesh, greetings to you. How are you doing?
Good evening, Sam, and good evening to the listeners. I'm okay, Sam. No complaints. Somehow, though, the last week or so seemed to be jam packed with government doing some kind of conference or event or the other. I wonder whether they becoming more efficient in terms of what they want to do, or is it just that it's coming towards the end of the year and they need to
Mm.
spend some of the budgets? But all in all, it's been interesting. At least you get some good networking done. One of the aspects which we did touch on in our series of shows. And
Mm.
one of the important aspects we raised was when you go to any event, make sure you understand why is it that you are going to that event and what you hope to achieve out of that event. That being said, today's topic, indeed, once again, an important topic, as is most of our other topics, which initially sounds innocent or simple. But once we start to dig deeper into it, we unravel some of the newfound knowledge and add to the value that we've been offering in terms of the digital online streaming show. Looking forward to this evening show. Thank you, Sam.
Yeah. We often just talk about you arrange a meeting with the guest and debrief them as if it's a press of a button and then everything else happens. Imagine if you are going to be debriefing a CEO of a Anglo-American. He's probably going to come with about 5 people, all of whom are the lieutenants or the administrators in his office. And all of a sudden, you don't just have 2 eyes, 4 eyes, but you have 4 eyes plus many. And all of a sudden, it's not just a conversation, it is a meeting. And we don't want our hosts of shows or people who convene shows or what do you call it, anchor shows, find themselves lacking in this space, because even if you have people supporting you and doing this for you, you're still the main person and you still need to know what needs to be in place when the actual meeting or the actual show happens. And in UNI diversion, many colleagues woken up to this very, very quickly when we started shooting very high during our training and inviting people that are really so big. I remember having to host the MTN chief of HR, chief HR officer. All of a sudden, you get the public of department, public affairs, marketing, wanting to understand how is this thing going to happen, what questions are you going to be asking. So then it just revealed to me that this is one aspect of the hosting of shows that can really determine the success and the failure of the show. When you bring such people, you think you're meeting one person in that meeting, and the meeting itself can be a deal breaker and a deal maker. Any reflection there? Do you agree with me that the art or competency of hosting and managing meetings, which is not always the competency of your secretary, is you, the manager, who's manager of meeting, that has to be able to tell your PA and everybody else what you want and how you want it done. Divesh?
Yes, Sam, just to start with the reflection, when you speak of the big guest, the famous guest, the guests, the type of guest that can make or break your show, it's
Mm.
important for our listeners to understand that as you go along the journey of becoming a successful online broadcaster, they need to be at a point where they are confident enough and prepared enough, have a good understanding of the numerous do's and don'ts which we've been highlighting throughout our series before
Mm.
they go and decide they want to have this very famous or potentially influential guest, which could make or break them. But that being said, yes, we make mistakes, we learn from them, and it's always best to do what we've always been saying on our show, is that you must plan. And
Mm,
for the meeting itself as well, like you have mentioned, if you look at a high profile person, they will have that support staff and support departments with certain levels of expertise, because they are not just representing themselves, they're representing a big organization. And that organization will have its own principles and be wary of safeguarding themselves, because as we've also mentioned in our series, that one of the benefits and potentially negatives of online streaming is that the content you produce has a potential to be outliving ourselves and be online and available for many generations to come. So it's very important that what you produce is of the best quality and it's of the best interest to our listeners, and of course represents our guests in the
mm,
best light, Sam. So yes, indeed, the do's and don'ts will guide, but experience is one of those things which is very important that our listeners must allow themselves to gain, uh, so that they can handle these situations where you're dealing with the team, and you
mm,
yourself can perhaps also have your own team who you can trust in to do the work that you
mm,
expect because they're representing you, sir.
How often, and I know I'm delving already too fast into the meat of the stuff that we're gonna discuss, but just I'm gonna ask this and leave you with a thought, and I'll ask Rapula to greet our listeners and just check in. How often have you been to a meeting and you find out that the main man or the main woman of that meeting, be the boss, trusted, or let me say, use this word, over trusted her team in getting everything the way she expected it or he expected it. And you are one of the participants in that meeting. You had nothing to do with the planning. You arrived there and you experienced an altercation, sometimes loud, but sometimes very quiet. You can just see that there is something not in place. And the boss is now has called all the organizers to their corner. It's giving them a tongue lashing because something that was supposed to be there is not there. And sometimes you don't even know what it is. But you can be sure that it is definitely a miscommunication between her as the host and the team that had to organize that. Just hold it there and tell me, how many times have you been in that situation? And if you are an observant and a professional person, you know, oh, things are not right. And you even become so affected because you can see that they are now in a serious embarrassment situation. Hold it there, but you'll come back after that. I want us to get into the topic very well and say, why is it so important that a business meeting or any meeting that involves external people, you have to cross all the T's and dot all the I's? Because it is the make or break of what you are about to be involved in. Rapula, let me welcome you with those few words and ask you first to greet people and listeners and introduce yourself. But welcome, my brother.
Good evening to the listeners. Good evening, Sam. Good evening, Divesh. Um, I think I'm recovering. I used the word recovery from a
Yes.
long and tragic weekend, but we are there. We need to move on. We need to show the strength, and we need to be strength also and believe in the strength that we have. So far, I think that's where I am. But I'm soldiering on, Sam, and we are soldiering on. Let me not use I, because once I use I exclude others who are also affected in this whole picture. But let it be. I've been listening, Sam. You before, maybe Divesh will respond. But let me just also respond to your question you ask. Very often, I use the word very often when such things happen. It's when the team does not understand the importance of the audience. And secondly, you as a leader of that section, it's ideal also to do what you call, sometimes you do what you call it, you check you do what you call pre-checking before the whole thing starts. Let me use one example. On Sunday we're burying my brother-in-law. So Saturday evening we had to go to the wall to go and check the systems if it's working. Even we said to the system guys that even if it's working, you are here 2 hours before the time tomorrow morning to make sure that your speakers are working. Don't have to wait for the speakers to start checking if they're working when the session had to start or church service has to start. So don't do that. So that's one of the things. Even if you trust your soldiers, do your own personal checks before you even leave everything on somebody's hands. Is that art of I won't say mastering, but do pre-checks first and dry run first before you can let it go. Say no, I've done dry runs, because bear in mind you can also do dry runs and something happens when you have to start. But at least you know everything was in place before the time.
Yeah. Let me give this background to this. Welcome, Marco. I can see you there. So, in short, we are talking about a meeting being approached as if it's a project, right? And all the aspects of the value chain being addressed, planning and preparing, identifying the participants, choosing the time and place, creating the agenda, setting up the meeting space, incorporating your electronic options, meeting roles and responsibilities, using an agenda, chairing a meeting, how to deal with the disruptions, professionally dealing with personality conflicts, taking minutes and making the most of your meeting using all sorts of activities. So meeting is not just one activity, it's a project of some sort, and for somebody it's a very huge project. Now the question, and that linked into the question that I've asked Divesh to reflect on, how often without knowing you can pick up that something has gone wrong. And sometimes when you listen to the story, you always know that is when people take it for granted that meeting is simple thing that is anybody can do, and it's not for everybody. You are working on your first project and have to organize and manage the project kickoff meeting. The questions are, what do you do first? Do you create the agenda or the invitation list? How do you run that meeting? What preparations do you need? And all these are valid and real questions you must address as the meeting manager. So there's no doubt about it that meeting requires skill and technique to achieve their purpose. Disorganized and poorly managed meetings waste time and hurt your credibility as a meeting manager, consistently leaving a poor impression on the attendees that will haunt you if left unchecked. Yeah. So that is a problem statement or a scenario, but let me go back to that practical question that I've asked Divesh to reflect on, because he works in an environment that is, I think, on almost on a daily basis, is in meetings. So there's a lot to learn from you, Divesh.
Yes, indeed, Sam. I think even though you've coin phrased it correctly, it seems a little bit understated when you say we have meetings. These days, it seems to be that you have meetings about meetings, which
Yes.
sometimes becomes very unproductive.
Yeah.
But to reflect on your actual question, it actually happens way too often in that you have been invited. Let's say it's a business meeting. You've been invited to a meeting. You can see that, firstly, if a person does not know what his meeting is going to be about and what are the key points that he's going to focus in on, i.e., he's not given you an agenda even. He's just called a meeting. He's decided how much time he's going to use for the meeting without knowing as well what is the actual issues that you're going to delve into in that meeting. That is already a telltale sign. And often, if he's showing up to the meeting late as well, and you are waiting there. There's a lot of people waiting, and no one knows now, is this meeting continuing, not continuing, because the chairperson of the meeting. And when I mention chairperson, we should understand that there's a formality about the meeting. So you've have got a chairperson and someone who's going to take minutes, so that you have a productive meeting, so that there's actions that comes out of the meeting. You're not just meeting for the sake of meeting. You want to actually achieve something. So when we go back to the point of what would be a process, indeed it's a project. It's got a start and an end date, and you've got deliverables that you want to achieve. And important in that project is who's the stakeholders. So for me, starting point was to identify what is it that your project is wanting to achieve, your meeting's outcome you want to achieve, and who are those relevant stakeholders that you need to invite to the meeting, and then you would go about actually crafting your agenda for that meeting, Sam.
And often, Divesh, this also happens when the meeting owner, the boss, just asks the PA to organize a meeting, but doesn't sit with the PA and bring them into the picture as to what the meeting is all about, the level of importance, because it's a PA, his or her job is just to do as told. And the poor PA start working on assumptions. I'm meeting the customers for a meeting in the boardroom. Please organize the meeting for me. Now, what they will do what is the obvious and the expected. They will book a room. They will fill up the diaries, and maybe organize coffee. In many cases, they will ask the facilities to organize coffee. And that's it. Then the clients arrive, and then what happens? You start to realize that you needed a projector, or you needed some flip charts, or you needed some handouts. But because the PA is not being made part of the planning and part of the conceptualization, the preparation really actually didn't happen. You just shouted the instructions. And what is wrong with that, Rapula? And how often this is the case, and how often the PAs and their assistants feel abused because they never get given full story.
Hence, it is ideal, or hence it is necessary that when you give an instruction, repeat it and ask the person if he or she understand it.
Is it a question of understanding, or is it a question of not having actually a plan?
It could be one of them. It could be both.
Yeah.
It could be both. But there was no plan. Hence,
We agree that like any mini project has got some logical things that is to be. If you have not yet developed a template that is almost like a framework of a meeting, because sometimes you get amazed that you'll find organizations that are running meetings every day and they're always having issues they pick it on the ground. They never thought of, let's sit down and really actually craft a template.
yes, yes. It's often an issue. I use the word an issue when you don't have a proper plan. I use the word proper planning.
Or
Because
you underrate the importance of the meeting to your business.
Exactly. Or sometimes you say, no, I'm used to do this things. I know how to handle it.
Or you assume that the facilities know everything, because sometimes this thing of having facilities is disempowering some line managers, because theirs is just to walk into the boardroom. And
Yes.
if it's not in place, they go back to a facilities manager and shout.
Yes. Yeah.
And
It
that's when
is.
conflicts start in the business.
That's when you open a can of worms of saying, do you know, when you do such things, redo, 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 and make sure that everybody who is part of the planning team understand where do we come from and where we're going.
Or what we are about.
And what you're about, and including what will be each one of us responsibilities.
Let me read this way. I want you to stay on, sit on the Prapula because we are on it now. One of the preamble to a planning and preparing for a meeting that I want to read for you. The first step in making your meetings effective begins with your planning and preparation activity. Now, just underline the planning and preparation activity. That could mean a lot for many people, and I'm sure it's different from organization to organization. But what they say is common is, and as Divesh was saying, you must determine the purpose of your meeting. I think for me, this is everything.
It is.
If you don't know why you are meeting, how on earth you will know what you need to plan for the meeting?
And
And
then
then
what
yeah,
anticipated outcome also of that.
yeah. And often we are superficial about this, superficial about the purpose of the meeting. If you see, they say, tell me, you are inviting me to this. What is it about?
Yeah.
You will find that they give you the outcomes of the meeting, but they don't really necessarily give you the purpose. Because the purpose will tell the magnitude of the meeting.
Yes.
If it's a budgeting meeting and it's a budgetary period, the purpose is clear.
Right.
There's a budget item that needs to be filled by the inputs from your department. That's not the type of a meeting that you can even start arguing about who should attend, because it's known fact. Whoever in charge of those budgets will come in, right?
Yes.
And then we'll answer who should attend. And then the location of the meeting. Here is where also we go. Yo, I've arrived in meetings, places, in companies. When you arrive, people are still looking for a venue.
It happens, and it happens sometimes. You get kicked out of the meeting, out of the venue, which you have been
The wrong
allocated,
venue.
and they said, "Sorry, we need to get a second venue."
Yeah.
It happens. It happens.
And then the next one is the that will form the foundation on which you will then build your agenda. So we're actually still talking about the conceptualization of a meeting. Yes. That is where I think a lot get missed, because the conceptualization is wrong. That meeting we are still going to reconstruct it when we are already there. Because we found that they invited the wrong people, because people didn't even know what they are meeting about. And you hear the locals asking you, the guest, what is this meeting about?
Somebody will ask you, why am I here?
This is an indictment on whoever calls themselves the owners of the meeting.
This one, somebody will ask you, I don't know why am I here?
Yeah, then they're revealing the politics, the real serious politics. One of those where people just get pulled into meetings without being told, because we just need bumps on the chairs so that the guests can feel that we have attended to it. Divesh, I see you were dying to say something.
Yeah, you were touching on my point I wanted to raise, Sam, the bums on the chair aspect, where sometimes you would require a certain person with certain piece of information that's needed to be shared to the meeting, and maybe even to make a decision in the meeting, but they are not available, and they would just send someone along to sit on the chair, and when they are needed to give input, they say, sorry, I came here at the last minute, so and so sent me here, but I don't even know what I'm coming to. So again, it's a point of, even the guests that you're inviting, you have to have a full understanding of what's expected from them at this meeting, so that even if they're not able to attend, they will send someone who can actually represent them. Often it happens that you can have a meeting and certain elements in the meeting do not get resolved because no information even comes to the meeting, or the person that was invited didn't show up at all. And then you find that that item in your meeting ends up going on for months and months and months, which again is unproductive. But I think it can be dealt with the point or the area that you're focusing in on now, where you plan and you clearly articulate what your meeting is about and who's involved in this meeting and what you need from them in terms of
Mm,
an agenda that you craft, so you avoid that issue. I've seen myself some agenda items that needed action by the next meeting. You'll find it's going on till the sixth meeting even, that agenda
mm,
item is not even being dealt with, Sam. So
mm,
indeed, I supported you in terms of how important that initial stages are. Even if you're
mm,
passing it on to the PA or whoever's helping you
mm.
establish this meeting, they need
Yeah.
to have a clear understanding of what is it that you're trying to achieve. They can set up a meeting, whether it's online or whether it's a physical meeting, because these days there's those
Mm,
options. Uh, um, then you have the meeting, and all of a sudden, half the people you needed in the meeting don't even show up because they were not available, or they had
mm,
competing
mm.
demands for their time. This day
Yeah.
and age, like I said in my opening, you can have so many meetings. Even at one point in time, there's 3 meetings going on, and every single one of those meetings is expecting you to be in those meetings. Thank you, Sam.
And in some organization, you literally find people queue behind at the meeting points for somebody to come in, so they go in, and when they come, somebody's queue. Then you ask yourself, why are there so many people in meetings? But anyway, I think we have highlighted one key thing is your PA or whoever you delegate to. When you tell them to organize a meeting, they have a right to call you to say, sir, can we sit down so that I get a full understanding of what is this meeting all about? Because that is going to inform me in terms of what needs to be set up in the meeting. Are you going to have a presentation, or is it going to be a negotiation, or is it going to be an update, or is it going to be a brainstorming session? But if you are so busy to even sit down with for 15 to 20 minutes with your PA to explain to them how important the meeting is, and also for them to ask any question that they may have, then I think I have a problem in that I don't think we understand the role of meetings in our management of our businesses, because meetings are just not meetings. So if you have run organizations like Buntatera Mutla, where you the SAPSWA, and I was at the BMF, and your members task you to organize a meeting of the members, and in many cases, a agenda it must be done, and people must be identified that are going to be addressing, and the members need to know what the topic is and what we want to achieve about it. They'll tell you straight in your eyes in the presence of a guest when they arrive there. If wasted their time, they tell you that we are members here and you're wasting our time inviting us to something that doesn't benefit us. Any big experience from your side there, especially when you are working for public organizations? There's no diplomacy when you don't get things right.
I'll tell you about the current. I'll tell you about the current experience with the TEMISA Coordinated Welfare Organization. We have the board coordinating welfare organization. So we wanted to form the executive management committee constituted by a member organization representatives. So on its own, it was a new project, and therefore one had to conceptualize it before. And then in conceptualizing it, you have to understand, as we said, you have to understand the purpose, who's going to attend, where, and the time.
Mm,
So in line with what Divesh said, we met about 4 times without action. And they started questioning, we are coming here, we are meeting, and we don't see progress.
mm,
And the next step I did, was to develop an action plan and shared it with them, and they approved the action plan. And thereafter, the action plan had got activities, responsibilities, and timeframes. So we
Yeah.
have given our meetings direction. When we go to the meeting, item number 1, progress, and then they report progress, and then they report successes and challenges, and the challenges then will form the basis for agenda items in the next meeting.
Yeah. What is that? So you put together a system of conceptualizing and arriving at a piece of document that actually now makes people to move.
Yes.
And here's the thing. Let's bring the bottom line. In big organizations, meetings that do not produce are very costly. It's actually money. I mean, because if you take a big organization that is national, people fly, or when people are in meetings, something else has to wait. These are heavy, very costly staff members. You lock them in 2 hours meetings that produces no results. And you still need them in the next meeting because the first meeting did not produce the results. And people think, it's okay, we can just reschedule. No, it's not okay. This person, if you take their salaries and divide them into hours and you determine their hourly rate, then you get a message as to how much money you have just spent. So that's why the purpose is very, very important, because it's the purpose that informs the agenda. And it's the agenda that actually tells you who must attend. And then it's who must attend that tells you whether it's going to be virtual or it's going to be face-to-face. And of course, the number of the people then tells you how big the venue is going to be. And that tells you whether the facilities can give you a venue in a house, or you might have to go to the hotel and book the venue. And once you start going outside, the budget shoots through the roof. So I'm saying the value of meetings to our management of business, my experience tells me that is underestimated, and it's not really put at the right level, because people tend to think that it's just a task that you delegate to a PA and then you meet, and then you say the PA doesn't even have to know what we are all about. That is a self-defeating. So now imagine, as I said at the beginning, you're going to host the CEO of a company at your show. And as I said, those who join us a little bit later, that what happens that if you bring the CEO of a company like Vodacom, he's not going to come alone to a briefing meeting. He's going to come with 5 more people, because this is his whole team. And if you are not organized, they can decide there and there that, you know what, this commercial radio station is not at our level. Next time, don't even answer their calls. So then the reputational risk damage is very high. So yeah. So thanks, Datira Mutla. But then take us back to your days at SAPSA, South African Black Social Workers Association. You hosted gala dinners and annual conferences. Give us the complexity there, Datira Mutla, in such type of organizations.
It's complex. It's complex because the first thing you have to do for a gala dinner, fortunately for me, I was the president and I was the person who informs the agenda of the gala dinner. More often than not, it is me who, within the theme of the conference, who addresses the audience. I made them laugh and said the president gives the State of the Nation's address, the premier gives the State of the Province address, the president of SAPSWA gives the State of the Organization's address. So yeah, the purpose of that dinner then is for the president to outline the successes and to outline the challenges and to come up with the strategies to deal with the challenges, which will form then the agenda for the whole year, which will then identify certain key areas that need further attention for the next year. Number one. Number two, obviously, the venue of the dinner is not the venue of the conference. The venue of the dinner is organized differently. It's a very high level place meant for to accommodate the guests on the round tables and set in such a way that they will be able to listen and they will be able to have their refreshments.
So there's already
Obviously, that kind of
there's already a dynamic there, and that Ramutla, there's already a dynamic there that we already have two organizing group of people, one for the venue of the conference, one for the venue of the gala dinner, and the people I guess are different. Those who are in the conference, they may happen to be the part of the dinner, but at the dinner you have got now the so-called celebrities arriving.
Yes, including yourself, Prasad. You have always been my celebrity. So,
Yeah.
there are two different settings: the conference setting, and which goes through formalities, and the one for the dinner. And even the purpose for the main conference and the purpose for the dinner are different. And as we have just confirmed, even the delegates for the conference and the delegate are different. The purpose is different. Yeah.
Yeah, great stuff. So there's a acronym that is, there's an acronym that is being used here I want to share with you. It's called SOAP, just to help us to think straight. Says that the S is seek topics from your participants if you want them to be part of the purpose. O is organize topics into a list. And then A, assess which topics are relevant to the meeting purpose. And then P, pick the number of relevant topics that will fit into your meeting time. So this is mostly for bigger meetings, but we are saying that the principles are the same. And therefore, if you want to capacitate your team, you are not going to talk them down just because you think the tasks are less important. They are your capacity and they are your extension, and you cannot not have time to be part of the planning of your team. But then let's move on as I welcome Maynard. Maynard, welcome. You are in the eventing business. You must have seen this type of things we are highlighting, that meetings are actually everything. Reflect on that, and hopefully you can give us your own experience as part of the planning. But putting this into context, we were saying that the purpose of our meeting and briefing meetings is to make sure our guest to our show is prepared and we are prepared according to the level of the complexity of that guest. And we are saying that those guests that are briefcase guys, they don't have too many people around them. They will just, if you want to brief them, it will be them coming. But if you are going to be briefing a politician, a president or a premier or a minister, they will even ask you. I've learned this very, very interesting. For the first time when I learned about it, I laughed because first thing they asked, they said, is there a holding room for the minister? I said, what is that? A holding room.
Wow.
They said, no, this is the room that the minister, when the minister arrives there, he doesn't just arrive into the open conference. He goes into a holding room because he's going to ask you a lot of questions about who's here. What do you want me to do? How do you want me to approach it? And so that makes it even quite fascinating. Can you imagine now your team has not even been made to master their own meetings, and now you are going to ask them to plan a meeting where there's other things that they've never even heard of. And then you said planning meetings is not that critical and you don't value it. And then you just shout instructions down the corridors and meetings happen. Anyway, let me hold it there because I get carried away because I'm trying to make a point to say meetings are your face and they are the beginning of your failure and success. And whether it's done by your PA or not, who is assigned to do to coordinate that meeting is not a beginning. You need to make sure they understand why them and what you want out of it. And if they command you at that point, because the failure, their failure is your failure. I hold it there. Maynard, you sell events. What happens?
Oh, wow. No, thanks, and that is and good evening, colleagues, and good evening to our listeners. Yeah, well, myself, I'm in event space, as I already highlighted, and I think our space is actually almost the same, even though unique a bit, whereby we don't actually have much of the PAs and other things. So in our structures, we only have like an executive committees whereby you have got your chair, your deputy chair, and the SG, and maybe the coordinator here and there. But when we holding meetings, definitely a meeting is a key. And when we are planning for events or a workshop, the coordinator and the SG, they do most of the work in terms of the planning and all those things, of which we are there on the background in terms of the guiding of what is needed and what other things. But like as you mentioned already, that like the planning part of the meeting is a critical stage whereby you said the minister must have a holding room first to get a briefing of what you're going to be interviewed about. And I think that briefing is quite important for that person to know what to expect when he's on air, to be caught off guard, things like that. So you need to prepare and brief him. Because usually the ministers, obviously, you would have maybe communicated with his PA or whoever before to get him through the studio or to get that invite. So you still need to brief him on that holding room, not a
Yes.
staircase. So yes, yeah. So you still need to, you still need to definitely brief him into detail so that he get the gist of what is expected out of him, and then so that he can also feel comfortable with your questions as they come, rather than to come and ambush him there on live. So with us, yes, we do most of the work other than to shift too much planning on the PAs and other people. We still do a lot of the work as an executive committee together with the SG and the coordinators. So,
But
but we
for you, it is a service, right? It's an
yes, yes.
offering. There is still a account manager in the company that gives you information, and it can happen that the account manager is a PA of a manager, not the manager himself. And if the PA is not capacitated enough to feed the right stuff to you, the provider of service, how do you deal with that dynamic sometimes? When you realize that the manager doesn't actually empower the PAs and the people are supposed to be your counterparts, and then it affects the quality of the meeting or the conference that you are putting together.
No, definitely, like if there is no coordination between the manager and the PA himself, we end up getting a challenge whereby maybe we get less information from the PA because she doesn't know what is expected or what needs to be done, and later on the last hour you realize no, this was supposed to be done the other way around instead when the manager comes maybe on the later stage. But I think that poses a big risk if the PA doesn't have much info or is not fitted with the whole scope of work of what needs to be done. It poses a big risk.
It affects the quality of your ultimate product.
Big time.
Great. So at least we just want to demonstrate the practical realities because we see these things happening every day, and what was supposed to be a great event, it ends up being an agony because the rest of you are trying to enjoy and people in the background are sweating, and it's not necessary. Yeah, I agree with you, Maynard. Planning is critical. So now there's also aspect of we touch on what you require for your meeting. And the bigger the number of people and the diversity of the contributors, the more the type of requirements that you will need. Stationery, the handouts, and the writing equipment, and other special requests that you may have. But let's talk about now you have planned, and comes the point where now you are sending invitations, of which the outcome is the response and the number of people that come. What often goes wrong there, Divesh? They tell you, we have invited so many people. Maybe 50 people invited, only 20 people pitch up, if you are lucky.
Well, Sam, the dynamics involved in that kind of scenario depends as well on what kind of event or what kind of meeting it was. If it's a business meeting, if it was taking place in a face-to-face environment, these days it seems that most people don't want to attend with regards to a face-to-face event. They are concerned with driving in traffic. They're concerned with being able to find parking and the drive back home from that meeting. If it's an online event, it could be an issue with regards to not taking cognizance of their availability and scheduling a meeting when they were unable to join your meeting because of other commitments. And if you're looking at an event, which is what we were talking about just now, it could be that you just was insensitive about the timing of the event. Maybe it was during, for example, just an arbitrary example. Maybe the Bafana was playing, or the rugby was on, and people opted to rather watch rugby and go to a rugby event than to come to your event, which was looking at something less glamorous to what they had as options at the time. So it could be many other things, but to the topic of the evening, it all boils down to having a full view of this meeting and how you go about planning it, what your venue is going to be, what the timing is going to be, who are the most important stakeholders that you want. If the number of attendees for that event is of critical importance to get the impetus of that event, then you got to look at what other things are happening around that time and how that could impact on your guests that you're bringing in, Sam.
Exactly. I mean, it's a State of the Nation address, and you expect people to come to a gala dinner. It's not going to happen.
Well, that example, Sam, you might actually be surprised that people will come for the food rather than listening to the live speech. Just record the speech and have the food now, and watch the speech later on.
Yeah. It's a hard sell for a face-to-face meeting today, which means then, because it's a hard sell, then it's one of the meetings that you need to actually be very technical about it. Because what brings people to a session is not just one thing, it's many aspects. And we also talk about how that invitation is sent out. What is said in that invitation? In fact, we're talking about locking them into committing to come. And Divesh, you touch on something very important. If I'm going to be choosing to go to a face-to-face, the logistical arrangement must not be a nightmare for me. I mustn't find myself not knowing very well I'm not going to have parking, and many other things that you require for a physical meeting, which you may not require for the virtual meeting. For instance, if it's a national meeting, now I have to grapple with the challenges of booking the flight. And then I have to see for myself that somebody drops me at the airport and somebody picks me up at the airport, and I have to do that myself. And then I have to complete the menu preferences and all sorts of things. All those things, if they're not taken care of and they are not made it easy for me to come, if I'm the type of a person that have a choice, I'm going to think twice about it and decide that I'm not going. And if the meeting is only face to face, then you are bound to have a very lesser attendance. Or if it's a face to face for hybrid, you could end up having everybody going on to the video conferencing. And the problem with that is then the venue where you are streaming from will be showing empty desks. I mean, I've seen meetings where they expected 50 people to come to the face-to-face and 100 people to be in the virtual. Then you have got 125 people virtual and only 25 people in the face-to-face. It looks very bad. Hybrid is one of the meetings that are very difficult to confirm, especially when you are concerned about the image you are going to be projecting through the video conferencing, because the video conferencing's focus is not on the people who are connecting virtually, it's on the venue where everything is happening. And if there's no action there, it affects the quality and the energy of the people who are connected online. Do you agree, Rabula?
I agree. I've attended one or two with hybrid, and the similar thing happens. So what you do, you need to have a very clever video person, where when you realize there's so many desks which are empty, only focus where the desks are full only. The other areas must just leave it. Other than that, you're going to end up having an issue of an empty conference or empty meeting at the physical presence, while on visual you've got plenty. And once that's happening on visual, you've got plenty. Probabilities of visual being listening becomes a little bit dodgy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course, it depends on the type of a meeting. If it's a conference where people are learning something, it's okay. But if it's a meeting where you're going to take business decisions and all things, or you are selling something or whatever, so it might not be. But anyway, the fact is that you must know that today selling very face-to-face meeting is harder than before. And therefore, the way you go about it, it needs a meeting about the meetings. As Divesh was saying, that there's a lot of meetings about the meetings. And you must have somebody who's an attraction that is going to make people to come so that they can network. And if you don't have an attraction, then you are not going to get it, that Ramudla. Yeah. So that's the dynamics of the model. Yeah. Yes, the Ramudla.
Yes,
Divesh?
Rasem, this is a dynamic that we are observing in the very same meeting I told you about forming the executive management committee. Some of the members gave apologies, but they said they are available on a WhatsApp call, and therefore we gave them that opportunity. When it happens for the second time, them be involved on a video call, the rest were saying, "Why are we coming? The others are not coming. Let us somewhere do it a video call, and we don't have a physical meeting." So that is a dynamic that comes with the hybrid. But from my side, I was very happy because everybody was participating. But with the people that were coming physical, they were saying we might as well stay home and have a video call meeting.
Mm. Mm. And already that is a reflection for you to make, because there's a reason why people choose that. There's something that's not appealing for them to come face to face. And if they go for convenience of being on a virtual, you as the organizer, at the end of the day, either way you're having a meeting, but what is important for you? If you want a vibe in a face to face, as I was saying to Divaj, you're going to have to be technical. You're going to have to think very deeply and seriously about the things that will make people to come and the things that will not make people to come. For instance, some people say introduce games on the face-to-face. Have a nice refreshments at the end of the meeting and for networking. More than that, have a crowd pullers. We have so and so will be present. Divesh?
Events I go to, especially technology related ones, the hook they use is they're always giving you little gadgets and trinkets, and people just go for those events just to collect those little gadgets. And sometimes you get these prize giving, so they
Yeah.
keep you in the little side events where at the end of that presentation they would have a quiz show or some kind of a poll, and then they give out gifts. So as the years go by, when I attend these events, they keep growing in terms of numbers because a large amount of people go there because they say, we're going to get these little gifts and trinkets, and they actually go for those face-to-face ones.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Or take the meeting out of the city center and let it locate somewhere where it's quite a pleasure to drive to.
Indeed.
So we are saying that the meetings have become very, very important because we're talking both virtual and hybrid and you name it. So now if we were to go back to the old way, the setting up of the meeting space. Now, from a coaching point of view, a meeting space is everything. And now meeting space means also the platform you use. Microsoft Teams or Google Meet or Zoom is a meeting place. And the friendliness of that meeting place. You're going to have to be concerned upfront as to whether the person that you are meeting is able to operate the platform to launch the meeting. If not, you're going to have to make sure that they have somebody next to them that is going to troubleshoot. The same way you will set up a face-to-face venue is the same way that you will set up a platform. Michael is on the line. He will share with you some of the sometimes surprises we have. When you think you're ready for the meeting, you get onto your platform and your computer starts refreshing. And it needs 5 minutes to refresh, and you came in exactly top of the hour to start the meeting. And now you're sitting there, you're going to be late by 5 minutes. And if you are not the only one for that meeting, you can't send the apology to say, my computer is refreshing. So what does that tell you? The same way you arrive 20 minutes at the venue, that means you need to log in, switch on your computer 15, 20 minutes before, because your computer is going to be updating the software is in the background, and all those apps, they're going to delay you. And that is something that I found quite very interesting that we take for granted. And then, of course, the basic essentials. If it's face-to-face, simple things like sweets on the desk, water on the desk, PA system, projector. I used to have a lady called Portia who was managing my office before Michael came. And we developed a template, and we used to laugh because simple thing like booking the venue and then forgetting those things. And then I'll say to her, you did not use your checklist. That's why you forgot about water. Because it's a very slight thing, but first thing when the guests arrive, they ask for a glass of water, a bottle of water. I said, but why didn't you put water on the desk? So for our people who work for us, who support us to be good hosts, these things are very, very important. And yes, they look very light, but they actually affect the quality of our meetings. Something like verifying the temperature of the room. Something we take for granted. For some people, that's important. if a guest is coming for the first time, make sure that the venue is right at the entrance, not right at the back. Like this particular client or partner person I was visiting, they put the whole venue right at it was a campus. They put the whole venue right at the back. I even went to go outside the campus. I was like, phew. So these people didn't really think of the fact that I don't know this place. But those are the things happen when you don't empower the people that organize meetings for you, because for them it's their full-time job. You hired them for that. And they can service you very well if you engage on this thing. So that is the basic essentials. I like the concept of the final touches, the extra touches. This I've seen it happening with those who are truly professional. Maybe Maynard, you may talk there. Let me read the list and tell me how have you experienced. They call them the extra touches, which make your meeting more meaningful to your participants. And one of those is like, in other words, you've gone through a checklist, you've gone through your plan, and then 2-3 hours before the meeting, some people even the day before, if it's a big meeting that goes days, you arrive at the venue, you do what they call final touches. Things like name tags being there, table with the name tags, projector on with a welcome message illuminated on the screen, signage outside the meeting room, which indicates that this company is here. There you are, keepsake. They call them keepsake, memento, that you're going to be giving the presents. Organizing music before the start and during breaks. Folders with all meeting materials, agenda, handouts on the table. Posters or visual aids posted around the meeting. Video playing relevant materials on the screen. And then I love this one, coat rack during winter months. So they're basically saying that, yes, you have a checklist, which is a bare minimum you must go through. But if you are really an expert and a good host of business meetings, and you are the person responsible for it, you after everything has been set up, people like Maynard, who are events managers, have done it, you still have to come and do finishing touches. And I often have found that a lot of things get rectified. For instance, when I run Le has to be in a circle. And then sometimes I come 2 hours before, I found that they put the chairs in the classroom style. I said, no. Take out the tables. I don't need them. I need a cycle. We are running a Lekgotla here. You remember? And then if we come 2 hours before, you still have time to rectify those things. Those are called the finishing touches in the Dramut.
Yes, indeed, Pratham. Most often than not, when we come to the Lekgotla venue, we find you and Michael having arrived an hour or 2 hours before to make sure that everything is set. And when we arrive at the entrance, the refreshments are already there before we enter the main hall. I really appreciated the way how organized you, Michael, and your team were, because when we arrived there, everything is ready. The projector is there. Refreshments are there. The chairs
and there's a lot of music in the room.
Yes, the chairs are they are not in a classroom shape. And when we finish with our refreshments, we are ready to start. The guest speakers are there. Everybody, the full organization is done.
Yeah. And the argument here is that these things are just not nice to have. They are part of your meeting and they enrich the quality of your meetings. And yet we focus too much on the actual content of meetings and we forget these little things that actually give the picture and the image of your meeting and actually make people want to be there. People wake up very early in the morning, they couldn't have coffee, and they arrive at the venue, they are told that there will be coffee time at 10 o'clock. They're like, phew, this is a long wait. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes,
You know,
even the I was saying even the mini lekgotla arrangements, when we go to the venues of the mini lekgotla, you find that they are arranged beforehand. You don't
Yeah.
arrange them whilst you are there.
No.
You arrange them beforehand. So yeah, it was a very good organizing system.
I looked at the checklist. I still have it here. It's a very big document, and Poshia and them and Michael, they will work on it for the whole week. One of the key things that used to be a must-have will then be the actual confirmations of attendees, because that keeps on changing. And that determined the number of mini lekgotlas that we have. Great stuff. So that was it about setting the place. Now let's talk about the strategic importance, Rabula and Divesh, of the seating arrangements. I've seen a recent picture of somebody that was facilitating strategy, and the seating arrangement was a classroom setup. And I was asking myself, a strategy discussion, and you're sitting like you're in a classroom. What is wrong with that? Rabula.
Sam, some, yeah, you can control it, some you can't control it. And especially, I'm going to refer to the issue of the classroom because, I've been taught an issue of lekgotla, which is more like a secular face to one another.
Yeah.
And very often, like right now, this evening, I was speaking to one of my peer. We're supposed to go to Northwest and facilitate a strategic session. And as you speak right now, they can't give us an appointment letter because of various factors. So you find that your planning is done the night or the morning before the session starts because of the dependency on other areas, not what you depend on yourself. So when you arrive at the venue, also the venue is designed the way they want to design it. You can try to change it, but the changes are becoming very, very minimal.
Yeah, because they made that not negotiable, right?
Exactly.
Because the reality is that if meetings is a critical element of your element of your critical path of delivering a product.
Exactly.
Right at the beginning, when you are negotiating to be brought in as a facilitator of this session, those are the things that you put forward.
Yeah.
Because of the nature of the meeting, we can't have a classroom shape. We need a U shape or a C shape or a T shape. These things are psychologically researched. They have an impact on the outcome of that type of a meeting.
So what we do to bridge that gap, we create what we call commissions. And on commissions, we create what we call C cycle.
These are breakaways.
Yes, on the breakaways. And we make sure that on day one is only your what you call the stakeholders making a presentation to how they're going to support your strategy. And however, towards the end of day one, we create what we called breakaway rooms. And on the breakaway rooms, then we decide. They don't decide, we decide. Then we go on the C cycle, on the C shapes.
No, that's wonderful. That means actually those are two different types of meetings, right? Because on the day one, you get the principals coming to give you marching orders.
Yeah.
So they basically do a presentation, right?
Exactly.
That's fine. That you can have a classroom set up and they're going to leave you behind and then they go away. And now you workshop the element, the strategy, the team. Now they basically they hand over to you, right?
Yes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's wonderful. But what we are saying is that not every sitting arrangement is suitable for every meeting.
But as a facilitator, if you're given the chance to change, do it.
Do it. Because it has the implication on the outcome and the productivity of your meeting. And ultimately your deliverables.
Exactly.
Now you are agreeing that meetings and setting arrangements, they are critical part of your value chain delivery. So you can't just say because they don't provide and then you get stuck with it. You will see the product that is going to be affected by that, Divesh.
Yes, Sam, I wanted to also touch on the point you just raised in terms of being having the correct kind of setup for the type of meeting that you're having, the type of event that you're having. Sometimes, yes, it necessitates a classroom uh, type of setup where you would have a person disseminating, maybe it's the manager or the captain of the police station or whatever the case may be, disseminating some information and instructions to them. If you're in that environment, there are important things that you need to take into consideration. For example, if there's a projector that's being used, make sure it's legible to all the people that's looking at the presentation, and making sure that the person presenting it knows what's actually behind. Often you find that someone is going on about the presentation, but the presentation is not even showing, or the slides are not even moving. Again, in my experience, most of the meetings takes place in a more boardroom-like type of setup, where you'd have the chair of the meeting sitting at the head of the table. Uh, the presentation as well would you most likely be facing away from him, and the boardroom has to be set up so that if someone is being, or if something is being presented, everyone in the boardroom should be able to see what's being presented. Again, more in tune with our online streaming. If we were to do a visual video type of stream, and you've got a guest on your show, normally you would have the kind of setup where it looks like a lounge or a lobby, where you've got the chairs not necessarily completely facing each other, but they're kind of facing the camera, but also facing each other to a point where you can have your conversation, be comfortable, but also have that level of engagement with your online viewers that you would have. So your camera that's facing you, and you obviously got to pay attention to your guest by having the visual cues, looking at them, uh, talking to them with your eyes, contact being made, and of course you've got to also be cognizant of your viewers out there who also need your attention. So depending on the type of event, the type of meeting that's taking place, the setup could be very different. One works for the other, but may not work for something else, and vice versa.
Indeed. And it is basically, we are saying that there's no one standard fits all, but there is only consciousness and awareness that is informed by the type of meeting and the objectives you want to achieve. So I think the point is made here, and I'm looking at time so that we can reflect and share some takeaways. The point is made, and that is, I think we over delegate sometimes the responsibility, which is not to say that we have to do the task ourselves, but people who are delegated to do this task for us, they need to be given full mandate. They need to be taken seriously as our partners. They need to be capacitated to be able to even know what our different kinds of meetings require. And at that time, when you ask them to do that, forget about the fact that they are just secretaries or PAs. You have assigned them something that is critical to your business, and that is, you are going to meet somebody that is important, that maybe is even going to sign a big check, or they're going to consume your product as you deliver it. And they do have their own preferences, and they do have their needs, and they do respond to a particular kind of a setup. So for me, that was an enlightenment as I was sort of like putting some of these things together, preparing, and also reflecting on my own experiences within my own organization, but also prior to me being self-employed in organization where I see, especially when they are big organizations, that your individual preferences don't matter, and sometimes is what actually compromises the productivity and the growth of managers and operatives. So those are my closing reflection points. What I have got a couple of worksheets, but we won't have time to go through this. I think in the initial stages when you are inducting people into becoming aware and competent on organizing meeting, you might need to introduce a number of checklists, templates, guidelines, and frameworks until they are able to know the basics, and then they are able to become creative and innovative. As long as you engage them in a meeting about meetings. I like that, Divesh. Meetings about the meetings.
Well, in the true sense of the word, Sam, that meetings about meetings is usually unproductive. But uh, I get the point that's being raised that especially in the online environment, which gives you some value propositions over and above your physical meetings, in that the tools available that can take minutes for you, generate notes about the meetings, generate action items, assign them to people who were in the meeting, and be able to track those action items even post the meeting. So there's a lot of value propositions. So when you say meetings about meetings, I think more in
Yeah,
the sense of
of
making sure
technology.
you,
But
yes,
isn't that, Divesh, that you still have to decide that you are going to use that technology?
indeed, Sam. But that being said, I think that option or luxury of deciding whether you want to use them or not, those
Mm.
days are slowly and quickly going
Slowly
away.
disappearing.
Yeah, now it's a must that you must get them, and
Yeah.
technology is being very influential and supportive in the one sense, but also
Mm.
it makes you a bit lazy
Mm.
in that it generates things, does things for you, but people should not get cognizant of that and get lazy that they don't
Mm.
check what is
Mm.
actually being generated for themselves.
Mm. Indeed, indeed. And over your overall reflection, Divesh, and advice that you want to give to the listeners based on what we have discussed.
Overall reflection from my side, Sam, is that like many of our other modules, planning is of the utmost importance. So the meeting in relevance to digital online streaming is equally important as other meetings that you normally have. The do's and don'ts, the knowledge we've shared is fully applicable to most of the online platform streaming environment that we would normally focus in on. That being said, I mean, even if you look at like I said, a video stream type of online program, almost all of these experiences we've shared is applicable, and you got to plan your meetings, the first engagements with your guest, dry run in terms of how the meeting would take place or the show would take place, and post the show you got to have a meeting to recap as to what went right, what went wrong, how were the feelings, what feedback you got from the audience or from the guests or from the listeners out there. Those are all important aspects. So you wouldn't necessarily just have one meeting for a show, but you would have planning meeting, post show meeting, after the show meeting. So that's very important, Sam.
Mm. Mm. I mean, you are experienced, and both of you, Divesh and Rapula, with the VUT shows. I mean, we go as far as preparing a framework and then calling the guests and briefing them, and not only briefing them on the actual content, but also the platform itself. And then from the production side, we will even then do what we call connectivity testing, because one thing I've learned about technology is don't make assumptions. The platform we're using, for instance, requires your people to download the app or to register on the web browser so that when they log in, but sometimes you find people battling to transition from the public platform into the studio. I'm sure, Rabula, you had that little challenge today, but because you are used to the platform, you immediately realized that you needed to log out and log back in. So somebody who's just a once-off guest can be set off by something like that. So it's those things have to be taken into account in advance. Over to you, Rapula, to reflect and also share with us what you think should be takeaways and what can we do to make these things
I think, Sam,
manageable.
where I'm sitting in my takeaway is, as I normally say, is practice, 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 practice. As a facilitator, where you can control, acknowledge, and manage, where you can control, make sure that you get the maximum from facilitation. That's my take on it.
Practice is what you think is that's your advice. You say you need to practice this.
Practice.
Beautiful. Maynard, what's your reflection and what are you taking away and what's your advice? Okay, Ndadra Mudla.
Yes, Pastor. Mine is just confirmation that every meeting happens within a context. It happens within a context. What is it? What is the problem statement? What is the purpose? What is it that we want to achieve? And today there's a confirmation that block is another template for meetings, planning, leading, organizing, and control. Because we learned tonight about the dynamics that happens within the planning. And we also learned the dynamics around leading. Leadership, it's for you to conceptualize the meeting and the purpose of the meeting and to delegate and to keep checking so that the cracks that might happen in the organizing, you are able to see them before you go to the meeting. Control, obviously, when you are at the meeting, you must make sure that everything is in order. The speakers that have been invited, the guests that have been invited, the tools that are to be used are all in place. That will be my confirmation for tonight.
Beautiful. Thank you for that giveaway. And that Mutla PLOC, PLOC, planning, leading, organizing, and controlling. That's powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. We all covered. I'm not sure if Maynard is able to check out what I've left out. Yes, Maynard, yeah?
Oh, sorry. No. I just wanted to say, like, in planning this whole thing, like the dry run is also very key and very important to do a dry run before any meeting, crucial meeting or workshops.
Yes, explain dry run for those who don't know what dry run is.
Oh no, the dry run is just basically to go to the venue, maybe just an hours or a day before, just to check if everything is in order.
Yeah. My experience of dry run is a real serious full day of doing exactly what you are going to do the following day at the tender meeting during my days at the bank, Rapula. With a coach. So for event organizers, Maynard, is you go and visit the venue and make sure that everything that you were asked to put in place is in place. That's your dry run, right?
Yeah, no, in an event industry, that is your dry run to make sure that like everything in terms of your lighting, your speakers and everything is basically in order, and your stage is properly, everything, like from everything basically, for sure. Make sure that everything is running properly.
Yeah, you leave nothing to
Usually,
chance.
even if it's a festive event, kind of like your DJs, your artists, they also come on a day before to come and perform before the actual event.
Yeah, yeah. But still, life happens. You must always have plan B. I've had during my days in the band, this junior band, amateur band, the vocalist tested the microphone. It was working perfect. When they say, let's go, start, the microphone was blocked. So what do you do?
That's what like
Anyway,
we always have
that's life.
the option
Yeah.
A. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. But I think what we have, the point we are brought up here for me, what I like is we are saying that don't underestimate the importance of planning for your meetings, the importance of having guidelines, framework, and checklists. Because if those smaller things, if they do things go out of hand, they affect your delivery of your. You can lose money because of you not realizing the importance of the planning for your meetings. What we are not able to cover because of time is the meeting roles and responsibilities. Everybody that comes to a meeting, they shouldn't just be attendees. They must have expectations from them. There'll be chairperson, minute takers. Attendees have a key role to play. And then, of course, variations depending on the size of the meetings. And of course, the key aspect of meeting is the chairing. Even if you are two, one of the two leads the conversation. And often we don't talk about that. I mean, I had a meeting today with somebody that we have invited to hear what they offer. The meeting starts, and I never actually apply my mind to say, am I going to lead the conversation or am I going just to listen to them presenting me their product? Then I realized, but it's me who's looking for that product. Let me give them context. So you take the lead, not necessarily chairing, you take the lead, and then from there they get to hear what you are looking for. So chairing of meetings is something that we must not leave until the last minute. Because actually you can come into a meeting and nobody is prepared to lead. And then you have a problem. Because now you start thinking, you never thought you were going to lead. Now you realize that nobody's leading. Now you must start thinking about what do I do now? Where do I start? And you haven't even engaged with the purpose of the meeting. Then it becomes a wasted meeting. And then, of course, the other thing is dealing with disruptions, especially if it's a big meeting. The whole staff is meeting or the committee is big, is meeting, and there are egos. So how do you deal with that kind of technology disruptions as well? People don't put their phones off. They keep on checking on their phones and they keep on going onto their laptops. And this is your meeting. You invited them and you lose them in that way. And at the end of the meeting, they have not contributed anything because you failed to manage the meeting. And the other disruption is personality challenges, personality conflict. It's important to know people. It's important to know the characters and plan for them. Use people according to their strengths and their personality traits. Once you start losing people to their phones and the laptops and other things, that's feedback to you that you have not actually put the team according to their strengths. They are disinterested and they just want the meeting to finish. And some are that disrespectful that they will even just there and there just change and do other things. Another important point, and I know Divesh is going to bring technology again here. Indeed, there are a lot of technologies you can use to record your meeting, take the minutes, but not all technologies have been mapped against the minutes taking templates. So you still need to be aware that you need to then, especially in governance kinds of meetings. But even there, if you have technology platforms that are mapped against the governance and compliance, you get very good minutes taking by technology. But it's still your responsibility and your accountability, even though you delegated it to the gadgets. And then, of course, as I said, there are some worksheets that we could share. And of course, the other thing is the technology, as Divesh spoke about. There's a lot of technologies that sometimes are used unnecessarily. There's a caution here that if you don't need technology, don't force it. but Diverge argues and say, but it's no longer an option. So therefore, you better make sure that all of you are trained on these technologies, because companies invest massively in these things and expect people to participate in the digital transformation strategy of shifting the company from manual to digital transition. But in that day when you're having a meeting and you are caught up by demands and you haven't been trained enough to deliver using that technology, if you can, don't pretend to be able to do it. Rather, get somebody to be on a standby to help you deal with disruptions that are caused by technology. But also, you could have your team members who are so crucial for the meeting, but they are technologically behind, especially if they are looking in from a distance. You better make sure that there is somebody that helps them, especially if you know their importance and their contribution is needed. We spoke about video conferencing and its dilemma, but there are also platforms like web-based meeting programs like Zoom uh, uh, and Microsoft. Those guys update their products almost every day, and they don't always announce, or if they announce or they send software to update and you miss it, you wonder, sometimes you want to go onto your platform and then things have changed. Again, it tells us that you have to plan, even if you know that you know these things. Planning is the only insurance that you can have, especially if you involve external people in your meeting, because there you are the eyes and the ears and the ambassador of your own company in front of strangers. You could actually end up damaging the reputation of your organization. So from today onwards, I do hope that we will never again underestimate the importance of planning for your meetings, no matter how small they are, whether they're internal or external. The habit of planning and checking things in advance is always beneficial to us as leaders of business. Thank you, colleagues. Once again, very, very helpful for our digital online streaming mastery show. The context was that you invite guests who might need you to brief them. And if the guests are high prominent people, you are going to have to plan with their teams, not only them. You wanted to say something, Rabula?
No, I want to say goodbye. Thanks very much, Sam.
All right, thank you. So, yes, just a quick reminder. Next week, we are forging ahead, colleagues. We are heading towards the target of Unit 40. Next week, we are meeting in Unit on Tuesday, same time, Unit number 35, Conduct 30. This is about the being the master of news and media. We are saying that as a host of shows, it's very important always to know what's going on in the media and always be up to date. Become adept in media and public relations to enhance your show's profile. Dive into PR strategies we are going to look into content package under media and public relations. I think we are the players in that space, even though we could have a sort of like confined approach, but nevertheless, because we are producing for public podcasts and all those, so we are in the media and public relations space. And Diverge, this space is highly impacted by technology today. We produce something now within 5 minutes is going viral, is already trending somewhere. We spoke about the podcasters who are now really the real disseminators of disseminators and the multipliers of the content that get distributed by the traditional media houses like CNN, NBC, and British what is it called, BBCs and Al Jazeera. So those are just traditional media houses that break the stories up, but the streamers take the stories, package it, invite subject matter experts, analyze it, and multiply it. We are in a very dynamic sector, to be honest, and I think I'm grateful that we took this journey, because our awareness of those do's and don'ts is really giving us the confidence that you hear us expressing in this show. So I'm grateful for that. Thank you so much. Yeah, that was our weekly Tuesdays digital online streaming mastery show whose aim is to capacitate us, the role players in the digital streaming business, either for audio or video. We are saying that there's a lot of do's and don'ts that we need to be aware of. And it's from here that we can land into even much more serious media platforms, media houses with this knowledge. Certainly, we are marching towards concluding with Unit 40 very soon. That was Commercial Radio Worldwide, the mind, the journey, the destiny. We apply our mind to the journey that takes us to our destiny. Our shows are based on the principle called the idea. We inform and entertain, develop and educate, empower and support, associate and network. That's the idea. The content of this show will be made available very soon, within 24 hours, at insightsonlinepodcast.com. Also available on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Amazon Music, and many other platforms. Even Samsung Podcasts, you can get it. So, yeah, thank you, Divesh, Motilal, Rabula Mulivani, Franz Ramutla, Maynard Maisela. Those are my co-hosts, the resident anchors of Commercial Radio Worldwide, great contributors and graduates of our digital online streaming mastery shows. We are pros. We are available for anyone who wants us to hold the spaces to help them develop the same insights that we have built over so many months. Thank you, colleagues, as always, much appreciated. And we'll see you next week, Tuesday, same time, when we handle unit number 35, Conduct 30. Goodbye, and you take care. And of course, thank you to our listeners. You are always appreciated for joining us.